Milk and I are going to be demonstrating the use of markers. Now, markers in our system is a very, very important part of our foundation of communication with the dog. A positive marker communicates to the dog that they did the correct thing. It releases them from whatever command they're in, and as well it bridges to whatever reward you're going to use. Now that could be petting, it could be verbal feedback, it could be a ball throw, or in this case it's going to be food, which is probably what you're going to be using in your training sessions in the next several weeks. Now on the other hand, a no marker is going to communicate to the dog that they did the wrong thing. Either they made a mistake during the command, or perhaps they didn't listen when the first command was given. In any event, what the no marker is going to do is it's going to tell the dog that an error was made at the point in which it was made, and it's going to bridge either to the dog being reset in some way, perhaps a physical correction, or it's going to be a correction verbally, depending on the sensitivity of your dog and the severity of the disobedience. So in our system, we use okay as the positive marker. Now, often you'll hear my marker sound very, very sharp, almost like a clicker, because I want my marker to sound different than the other words that I'm using for giving the command or for just talking in conversation. As well, my no will sound different, and you might hear that in this video. Now, the marker is really, really important to use, and one of the reasons why we give this type of homework for the first few weeks, where it's simply practicing one command and a marker to a reward, is because we need your skill set to raise to the level of the dog. Now, the marker is the fundamental way that we've communicated to your dog what we want and what we don't want. As well, it keeps the integrity of all of the commands. So I don't want to get in the habit of giving a command and not properly releasing my dog from it, and allowing my dog to think that they can be in whatever command and just wander off or do whatever after the command is given. I want to stay very clear with my expectations. As well, I don't want to communicate to my dog that if they don't listen the first time, or if they make a mistake during the time that they're in a command, that there aren't going to be any kind of consequences for that. This is the foundation of leadership. So these are the skills that you really need to be honing in on, and they're much more important than trying to troubleshoot the behaviors that you came here with in the first place. That'll be no problem once you get down the basic handling skills. So now Milk and I are going to demonstrate simply what it looks like to be asked, to be cued for a command, and then released with the okay. Come on, Milky. Oh, he's a good boy. Now, first I'm going to give my cue. Hey, sit. Okay, good boy. And Milk is very obvious because he's a very excitable dog. So when I say okay, he literally jumps out of the command, which is actually something that you'll be looking for in your dog as well. They should be happy to hear it. Hey. Sit. Oh, geez. Sit. Okay. Now Milk hasn't done stuff with body language since he was a puppy, so he's like being a little bit exaggerated in his movements. Sit. Okay. Good boy. And then the reward comes. Kibble in the windpipe. Sit. Okay. Good. So what that's doing is it's telling him he did the right thing, and it's releasing him from the command to get the reward from me. Now this is what it looks like if I want him to stay in the command and not release him right away. Here, Milky. Sit. Good. So I can tell him good. That's another type of feedback, but he's not released yet. So what I can do here is I can feed him in the command, and he stays in the sit. I can feed him in the command, and he stays in the sit until, okay, he comes out. Now, let's just pretend that I told him sit and he didn't. The next thing he would hear is no. Now look how that got his attention just from sniffing the ground. He doesn't know what I said no for, he just knows that I marked a time when he wasn't doing something right and he needs to give me more attention. So let's say I wonder if I can make him mess up. Let's say I told him to sit and he didn't. So the next thing he would hear is, no, sit, good. So I would set him up to do the command again. Now, there are going to be times, and we'll discuss this in your private sessions, that an actual physical correction on the collar is going to be appropriate. But just for starters, just practice the like verbal and muscle memory of giving a command clearly one time and using a marker that's either okay, you did it right and you're finished, or no, and then reevaluate resetting your dog or something like that. Remember, setting a dog up to start over again is a consequence. They didn't get the reward, so keep that in mind. So now we're going to do the down. Flats. So he leaves me, goes to the down, and then when he's finished, okay, there's the reward. He can leave the down, he's finished with it now, and he can come get his reward. Now, I can also reward him in the down. Flats. So I can go to him, give him food, and say, hey, you're doing a good job. Flats. Remind him that he's supposed to stay there. And then, when he's finished, I can say the marker, and that's the only time that he is allowed to be released from the command. Okay, good boy, Milky. Okay, so we've established some of the basics of the marker. Now let's talk about the sit stay and the down stay and any kind of stay at all, and what it looks like to reward the dog in place versus marking and releasing the dog. All right, so I'm going to put Milk into a sit, and I'm going to practice the stay command. Sit. Good. So here I can reward him just to say, hey, thanks for listening, that's awesome, but we're not finished yet. Now before I walk away, I'm going to remind him that he's not to follow me. So I repeat the command. You do not have to say stay. The dog has been taught to stay in the command regardless, but because I'm on his side and I want him to get things right, before I move, I'm going to remind him what we're doing. Sit. Now, I'm going to back out of his space, sit, and I'm just simply going to make a circle around him. Now, at any point, if he messes up, what he's going to hear is that no marker, and then we'll address it from there. Sit. No. There it is. No. And that was a correction. Sit. A very minor correction. Sit. Good. Sit. Gonna make a circle around. Sit. Now what I'm looking for is the dog can look at me, but I don't want any of the feet to leave where I put them. Sit. So now I can come in, I can feed him and say, look, you're doing a great job for staying there, but we're not finished yet. Sit, and I go away again. Now I'm going to go in the opposite direction. Sit. Now this is the very foundation of how the dogs here are taught to stay in a sit or a down or a stand. But what you're learning how to do here is to move under a threshold, is to read your dog's body language, and how to just simply honor the integrity of a yes and a no, a reward and a correction, etc. So at this point, sit. I can come in and reward him. I can mark and release him from here, or I can mark and release him while I'm away from him. The important part is that I'm releasing him when his attention is good and everything is the way that I like it. It's like it takes a picture of a moment in time for the dog. So up close it would just look like this. Okay. And he's free. Then he can get the reward. And notice that I don't have to reward him at the same exact time that he did something right. The marker is what told him he did something right. It can take a couple of seconds or a minute for me to get the reward out, to give it to him to link with that mark. So, we quickly reviewed the sit stay. Now I'm going to demonstrate the down stay. And in the down stay, I'm going to mark him while I'm away from him. So if you see him break and run to me, I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it on the camera, but I will have given him the okay. Now when I do the down stay, one really important thing that I'm looking for is that the dog does not get lazy and start to twist his hips to the side. I want him to stay straight. The dog can lay 23.5 hours a day any way he pleases, but while we're working, I'm gonna nitpick that detail. The more details you can nitpick in the dog in these classroom type settings, the more leadership you're going to take, the more real estate you're going to take in their brain. Because they're like, man, this person is looking at every little thing and how I do it and everything matters. If you can get that type of structure out of your dog in this type of situation, then you're going to be at the forethought of everything your dog is doing, and that is going to translate into situations where things might have been difficult for handling in the past. So I'm going to show you from Milk's stand, that I'm going to give the body language and the word for the down. Flaps. So as you can see, see how he moved his hips like that? Now, Milk is my sport dog. We don't normally train like this, but I'm not going to accept that as an answer. Either I'm going to help him with the food to move forward, or I'm going to make a little pressure with the leash to say, I don't like it like that. And I'm not going to move on with my down until it's the way that I like it. Now, if at any time he makes that mistake and he rolls again, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to address it before moving on. Plats. So it'll look exactly the same way. I'm going to start in a circle. Now notice, when I move away from him, I'm very aware of, so I don't want him to be lazy. Plats. I'm going to be very aware of whether or not my body language is moving him, if I'm inviting him by accident to leave the down. So I'm very conscious of compartmentalizing my movements to be very clear to the dog. Now, as your skills improve, it's not going to matter so much, but in the beginning, make sure that you're being clear. Don't be so quick to hold your dog accountable to something that you weren't clear about. So for instance, okay, if I want to put him in a down stay, and let's say he's very excited and I moved really quickly and he jumped out of the down, and it looked like this, Flaps. And he got up. Well, that was really, really unclear. But look at the difference with this. Plats, he's settled. I'm going to stand up first, and then I'm going to move away under a threshold where he can see each step of what's happening. And then before I move, I might remind him, Plats, to help him. Now I'm moving at a pace where I know that my dog is going to do well. No. So he made a mistake. No problem. He heard the no. Plats. Good. Now I just reset him. To him, that's a consequence. He hates not getting the reward. Plats. He's also my sport dog, so he's trying to read me in a different way than a pet dog would, which I'm glad for because now I can show him making mistakes. Now I can add little distractions like flipping my leash over. I can add little distractions like making a little bit of resistance on the leash. Plats. See where I pull him and then I release it. Now if he's doing really well but I'm not finished yet, at any time I can go in, feed, Plats, and go away again. Now if I want to release him from a distance, okay, then he comes to me and he gets the reward. So the same exact thing is going to happen for the stand stay. You might make a little bit of engagement, some food for free, and then give the command for the stand. A. Now again, I'm going to move under a threshold where I'm not inviting the feet to follow me. A. Good. Again, in this command, I don't want any feet to move, or no, 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 or I'm going to reset it. A. Good. I'm actually really glad that Milk is making mistakes. When the dog is too perfect, nobody gets to learn. A. Good boy. If any foot moves, I'm going to start over again. And I'm going to put him as close as I can to exactly where he was. So I can come in, still careful that feet aren't moving. Good. And then I go away again. Now, I'm going to move farther away and release him to me so that he has an opportunity to run and be happy.